All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I got a special guest with me. He is Mr. Half Ironman and Captain Triathlon. He just finished up fourth year kinesiology at McMaster 2 years ago, and now he is a first-year medical student at the University of Ottawa. So, without further ado, I want to welcome Sherif to this week's episode of Kev's Conversation. So, what's up, Sherif?
Hey Kevin, thanks for having me. I'm glad we could finally make this work out, eh?
Yeah, finally, man. Busy times, even despite the quarantine, but nonetheless, we had to do what we had to do. So anyway, Shreve, how's everything been going? Like transitioning into med school and stuff. What's that been like?
It's good. So I just finished up my first year literally 1 week ago today, I think. And it's been like me and my friends through undergrad. One of my closest friends, he's at McMaster Medicine right now, finishing up his second year. We always discuss this during kin that I can't wait for that point in time where you study for your practice. Like you're studying with the point of like, I need to know the relevant information so I can help people in the future. So I haven't achieved that until getting into medicine because undergrad was all about getting the marks to get you into whatever postgrad program you want to get into. But now it's a point where you just have to pass. So focus on knowing what's relevant for you. So I've enjoyed that. We have half days from 8:30 to 12:30 p.m. every day, except for Thursdays are a bit longer. And it's awesome because it lets you make sure that you're still doing the hobbies that you love. Like I'm still hanging out with my housemates, playing video games, and it lets you volunteer in the evenings after noon. So I think once a week I'll maybe go shadow a different kind of doctor in the hospital that's attached to the medical school. So it's really nice because once you're in medicine, everyone in the field is looking out for you. They see you as like a person that's going to be their peer one day. So there's so much more support, I feel.
For sure. Which is good to have. And like you said, it's good to study something you know you can apply later on, which is a lot different from undergrad. What's
Yeah.
the overall difficulty like in terms of your course load and your day-to-day schedule, like in terms of studying hours and things like that? Has it changed a lot since undergrad?
So in terms of studying, it's very different. Where because you just have to pass and pass is 60%, there's way more content. So for example, we have maybe one or two midterms per semester. And those midterms, if you could imagine the content of like maybe 3 or 4 undergrad courses put together into one midterm. So there's so much more information you have to take in.
Yeah.
And during undergrad, my friends always said, "Oh, Sharif, you don't study that much. You study like the week before and you manage." But it doesn't work. There's just so much information. And because you know that, because right now I'm a pre-clerk, right? First 2 years, I'm a pre-clerk. Third and fourth year, I'm on the wards. I'm in the hospital. And I'm expected to know this because I'm going to be seeing patients. So just that responsibility makes you not just want to, so that if you used to study in undergrad in the terms of I'm going to do well on the test and then walk out of the test, completely forget it, like that short-term memory,
Yeah.
you feel a sense of responsibility that that's not going to work. So you actually, they recommend, I remember on the first week of school, they were saying we recommend you spend 5 hours a day studying and reviewing what you already discussed.
Crazy.
Personally, I don't do that. Maybe 2 or 3 hours on the weekend is when I study. Maybe I'll put in 5 hours on Saturday and Sunday, but the 2 weeks leading up to the midterm, I'm studying like every day at least 5-6 hours because you do really want to know it because this is people's lives. So like you were saying, it makes it different, like studying for a career in post-grad school versus in undergrad where it's more, I'm doing it to get marks. Like you're still doing things you enjoy, but you're more doing it to get the marks you need to do the next step in your life.
Yeah, for sure. What do you feel is like one of the hardest parts of med school overall?
Hardest part of med school. I personally think it's the pressure to try to figure out during these 4 years. The thing is, people think that, and I thought so too, that once you're in medical school, you're set. Like that dream of yours, you're finally doing it, you're on the right path. But the truth is, like, it never stops. Just getting accepted doesn't stop because next thing on your mind once you're accepted is, what am I going to do in fourth year? Like, am I going to match through CARMS for the residency I want, where I want to do it? And not even that, sometimes you don't even know what you want to specialize in, and that adds so much pressure. So in my head, it's a constant battle of, oh, I really want to do this one specialty. And then I observe a different specialist, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting too. So the hard part is trying to expose yourself to all these different specialties to figure out what you want to do and prepare yourself for that specialty. I
Yeah.
find the hardest part. In terms of the information itself, if you got into medical school, that means that you had not to take away from people that don't get in, but out of most applicants, if you're applying, even just applying to medical school, you've made it to a point in your life where like you know how to study, you know what works best for you. So in terms of the academia part, you're okay. No one really fails in medical school. So that part I don't find challenging. You just have to put in more work because it's more content. For me, it's more the next step is like getting the residency one, and that's stressful.
Yeah, I think that's also a big problem because you do your first 2 years and then you spend a lot of time working with other doctors in third and fourth year in your rotations. But the problem is you have to apply for residency when you're in your fourth year. And you want to be competitive for, let's say, something like orthopedic surgery or like neurosurgery. You're going to want those publications and that experience for 4 years, not just for like a couple months leading up to applications. So how do you think like most people would go about dealing with that? Just, if you want to go into like something really competitive, but you realize it's really late. How would you sort of go about that?
So we have this thing called a vertical mentorship group. So once you enter University of Ottawa medicine, you and other people in your year are paired with second years that are also in a group with third years, fourth years, and it keeps going for generations of medical students. And there are two doctors that oversee each mentorship group. So one of my mentors, the physicians, they sit on the committee for selecting future residents,
Mhm.
and they say that like for me having this conversation with her, she had invited us to a dinner at her place and we were discussing this, and it was a very relieving conversation because she highlighted that the main things they look for in residency is that you're someone they can rely on, so you're responsible, and they're like, we don't care where your reference letters come from as long as people are supporting that you are someone that's responsible and they trust, because they're like, at the end of the day, if you come into their profession, you're going to be on the ward with them, whether you're the junior on call or something. So they want to be able to rest assured knowing that if something comes up and they're busy, they can trust you to go there. So they just want to know that you're reliable. And the other thing is that they'd enjoy working with you. Because think about it, like each specialty is such a small specialty, whether that be neurosurgeons or orthopedic surgeons, like you said, they all kind of know each other in Canada and even around different countries in the world. So they want to know that if I'm on shift with this person, I'd enjoy being with them, or that overnight on-call shift is going to go by quicker because I'm with this person.
Mhm.
So she simplified it to those two simple things. Obviously, there's the research aspect and all of that, but everyone's going to have that to some extent. So she really emphasized to me the importance of those two things. And
Yeah.
that was really reassuring for me.
Mhm. That's good to hear that you have like a good support group even in med school, which is really nice.
It's
Uh,
important at any phase in your life. Like I'm sure during your undergraduate, like getting to a point where you are even just applying to medicine, there's a lot of challenges. If you want to share your
yeah,
own challenges.
definitely. I mean, like a lot of times, honestly, like people will see your achievements, right? And they'll always say like, "Oh, you did so well at this. How do you like balance this amount of workload? How do you still have time to get good grades? You have time to spend with friends." People tend to forget that with all the things that they see you're doing well, they forget all the times when you're in the background and you're failing. So one of the biggest examples for me is like whenever someone sees whenever someone like when I tell my friends, usually like I finally like publish this paper in a journal, like wow dude, that's so great. What I don't tell my friends, because like why would you want to tell them this, is just the fact that like this paper had been rejected like several times before it was even published. And for that in and of itself, it feels like a very like big failure in a sense, because you spend over a year working on a project only for a reviewer to say that you didn't do this part right and you didn't do this part
Yeah.
right, and now you can't put it in the journal. Like that really hurts, right? Especially when you think about it in the context of trying to go to med school. Like obviously publications are important. That's not to say that you do research just for the sake of getting publications, but you do it with the end goal that your work will get recognized. So when it isn't, it does hurt. And I think people should remember that not everything's going to work out when they're going to med school, whether that be in the field of research, volunteering, whatever you're doing. But like you said, like you need that support group to be there. Like for me, my supervisor was my support group. Like it was really helpful to have someone who said, like, just because our paper got rejected this time doesn't mean it's going to get rejected for the next like 2 to 3 journals we submit the paper to. So keep your head up, keep replying to the comments, things
Yeah.
like that. A lot of challenges for sure. I think research is probably one of the bigger challenges I've had throughout undergrad just because I'm new to it. But
Yeah.
yeah. What
Yeah,
about
fun fact, like I've never been involved in research to that extent. Even applying to medicine on the OMSAS portal, the whole research tab, I just clicked next, like that tab was completely empty.
you?
Just because I tried research and I didn't find that the research that was available to me as an undergrad at the time was something I was interested in. And I'm a big believer in only doing things you're interested in, not just doing something to slap it on your
Exactly.
ABS or your OMSAS application. So I just didn't go with it. Some people said, you want to do medicine, but you don't want to do research. That's absurd. But it worked out. And I've heard stories of people getting into it because I felt like I was being true to myself and genuine by only pursuing things that I was interested in. And what
Exactly.
you were talking about, like that idea of just because it got denied this time doesn't mean it will get denied next time. Like
Mhm.
that's the whole idea of resilience. And University of Ottawa's med school, they have a lot of mental health resources available to medical students. And the whole idea, they have workshops set just on resilience because resilience is such a big thing because resilience is what differentiates between people in terms of two people facing a challenge and the one person saying it's just not going to happen versus the other person saying, okay, this is a challenge, I'm going to keep going. And
Yeah.
then another challenge, and like, I'm going to keep going because I can see that goal of mine and I will persevere with whatever's in the way. So I think it's such a big, important thing. And like you said, people only it's habitual and it's a societal norm for people to only talk about the positives in their life more regularly.
Exactly.
And when someone says I ran a marathon, no one thinks like, oh, they at one point like they didn't run a 5K, they tried to run a marathon last year but they failed at it. Everyone just remembers that this person ran a marathon.
Exactly.
Yeah. Once you get into medical school, it's like this person is a med student. You don't say, oh, this person didn't get into med school like 3, 4 years.
Mhm.
And you see that around me. There's so many people in medicine that got in after 4 years of applying and things like
It's
that.
crazy.
But they made it and they made it towards a goal that they've been aspiring towards for so long because of that resilience.
Yeah, for sure. So for you, especially like obviously with med school, you probably have to like on a daily basis, you're gonna have to come across times where it's like something's just not working, especially when you're studying, you're trying to understand a concept and you're like crap, I really don't understand this.
Immunology for me.
Exactly. Like for some people it's immuno, for some people it's endocrine, whatever the case may be. So in terms of resilience and like just having to overcome all of these challenges and going from pre-med and now to med school and all these other things you're doing on the side as well. What's one of the things that sort of like really keeps you motivated in terms of making sure you get past each of those obstacles and continuing to pursue whatever it is you want to do?
Yeah. Uh, so I'm a big believer in visualization, and I think we covered it in my fourth year or third year. I took a sports psychology course. I think it was third year, and we spoke about like the visualization and the power of it. And I realized that it's something that I'd been doing for most of my life without realizing. But what gets me through challenges, especially in medical school right now, is that I have like a very clear image of where I want to be in the future.
Mhm.
And just because I'm so in touch with that and I can see it and it's like almost right there, because I have that sense that it's right there and I know where I'm going, I whenever there's a challenge, I just remember that picture and it just keeps me going.
Mhm.
And I'm a big believer in the power of vicarious experiences. So seeing other people's success stories like motivates me because to me, it's just that's someone else who has the same 24-hour days as me. So if they can do it, why can't I? You know what I mean? Coming in from high school into undergrad, people said that, oh, just wait until you're in university. Your marks are going to go down. University's so hard or whatever. But I looked around me and there were a few people that I could name who were doing really well in university. So I was like, if them, why not me? They have the same 24-hour day. And then once I was in undergrad, people said that about getting into medical school. They're like, it's impossible. Like only 2% get in. I'm like, what you just said is contradicting. It's
Mhm.
not impossible if like a few people are getting in.
Yeah.
If them, why not me? We all have the same 24 hours. So I think it's very important to, the most powerful thing you can do is be driven. And
Mhm.
the only way you can be driven if you sit down and reflect on what it is you want to do.
Mhm.
And once you have that clarity of vision as to what you want to do, you will develop drive and passion and resilience towards that goal. And for me, that's what gets me through challenges. So
Yeah.
when I'm doing immuno and something's really frustrating me, it doesn't make sense, I tell myself, what is it that I want to be? And in my head right now, it's either an orthopedic surgeon or a general surgeon.
Mhm.
Right now, it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
But to me, like, I know that I'd want to be a surgeon.
Mhm.
So I just think to myself, is this something that I absolutely have to know? Well, not really. So I don't worry about it too much. Is there some aspect of it that I have to know? Yes. So what's the basics that I have to know so that I could be a good clerk in my third year, my fourth year? And so I don't miss on the basics, even as a surgeon, because all these different disciplines interact together. So that's what I study. But the complex things, I'm just like, I don't really have to know that unless I become a specialist that really focuses on immunology in their practice.
Exactly. For sure. And one of the other things you touched on, which I think is super important, is just doing things that you genuinely like, not for the sake of putting it on a resume. I think that's a common problem amongst a lot of people because, when you see like professional schools, you see those, like you said, the acceptance rates 2%, 3%, 4%. And all of a sudden people are volunteering like 30 hours a week at something they don't even like. So for me personally, like one of the things which really motivates me, I need some water. One of the things which really like motivated me was to just do things that I genuinely like.
Yeah,
I have water here.
there we go.
But like for me personally, like I always really liked sports growing up. So that's why I did kin in the first place.
Yeah.
Also why most of my experiences, like even my research and stuff, a lot of it focused on things like low back pain, which is something I've had a problem with when I was younger. Um, I've had experiences focused on just working with athletes or just giving back to the community, like we did with motion ball. That was also
Mhm.
related to sports. So I think when you have something which you genuinely enjoy, it becomes much easier to overcome the challenges that you have um, in general. So like for you, especially like going back to undergrad now and reflecting back on that journey, what was a typical day in your life like during undergrad? Because I remember you telling me you used to get up at like 5 a.m. every day, and then you would get home. You were also a commuter in undergrad, which makes things even more difficult than it already is. So you were up. I think you were up at 5 a.m. and then you would be with the swimming team sometimes late in the evening, um, and occasionally you get home at like 9, maybe even 10 if you had a late meeting. So can you tell me a little bit about what it was like in your sort of pre-med journey during undergrad and some of the things you did that really got you into medicine now?
Sure. So, like I said, I wasn't a research heavy person. I was more like volunteering, being involved in on different committees and things like that because, like I said, that's what I enjoy.
Mm.
So, my day-to-day life during undergrad was, like you said, waking up at 4:55 exactly. I still have it in my alarm because I just never cleared it. But 4:45 a.m. so
Mhm.
that I could start heading towards McMaster at 5:30 twice a week. Once or twice a week I would have a shift at the Pulse as a personal trainer
Yeah.
at McMaster University. So I'd start off my day with a shift there.
Mhm.
And I was also a rock climbing instructor. And for a time I was a sideline medical first responder for a soccer league that I did on weekends. But usually I was waking up early just because I got in the habit of that. So if I wasn't working in the morning, I would be studying in the morning because the rest of my day would be busy. So I'm a person that I personally believe that I do way better and I'm way more productive when I'm busy because I won't be like, oh, I'll do that later. I have plenty of time.
Exactly.
So work in the morning and then maybe a class or two. If not, I'll study.
Mhm.
And then around noon, that's when I will do my workout usually. And then after my workout, few classes or study. And then I'd have meetings, whether it be with motion ball or whether it be the kinesiology society,
Mhm.
or if I would be working on something for myself, such as a podcast that I have with SAF.
Mhm.
But you're right, I wouldn't go home until I would take the last bus if I was taking the bus that day, which is around 10:45 to come back to Oakville.
Yeah.
If not, I'd drive back at around 9:30 because I would be on campus studying. But and I was with the swim team almost every evening during the week,
Mhm.
4:30 to 6:30 on average.
Yeah.
And I'd finish that and go to a meeting or study because,
Okay.
and people tell me, how'd you do that? Like, how do you not burn out? But if you're doing what you love, like we've both mentioned,
Mm.
I look forward to it. Like I enjoyed working at the Pulse, even if it was in the morning. Maybe in the winter it wasn't as fun, but during the summer or towards the end of the semester when the sun was up at that time, I had no problem doing it. Seeing the same faces, being involved in physical health, which is something that I value as a kinesiology student, as a
Like,
person.
because you liked what you were doing, right?
I loved it. Like kinesiology, like you said, I had no problem studying for it. I remember making the mistake of taking electives that people labeled as bird courses
Mm.
and struggling hard with those because
Yeah.
I was no longer doing something I enjoyed, and the course ended up being my lowest mark in undergrad just because I couldn't study for it because wasn't interested in it. But people called it a bird course
Mhm.
versus the kinesiology courses. People were like always like, "Don't take that course. It's super hard. The professor marks really hard."
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it so much that I had no problem studying for it and putting in the effort. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you can relate because the topic of bird courses, and I'm sure you get asked the same question when a grade 12 asks you, what program should I get? What program should I get into? I don't know if you've had that experience and want to talk about it because I think it's a very important thing and it relates to so many people when they ask what program should I go into so I can pursue a field career in like medicine, for example, because that's
Yeah.
something we're both interested in.
Yeah, and it's definitely a good question. I think with a lot of high school students, they obviously don't have that same experience that we have after going through our full degree. One of the main things I like to tell students, I was actually on a call a couple days ago talking to a high school student about why she should do McKin, and not to like
The best program.
yeah, not to say that it's the best program or anything, but I think the most important thing is just make sure you go somewhere where you're not gonna hate studying. Like obviously studying is not, I'm not saying it's something you should love per se because obviously it's very difficult, but it is something you should genuinely still enjoy doing. Because if you're always gonna be at your laptop and you're studying, let's say 3-4 hours a day, on a heavy day, you don't want to be doing something you don't like. So for me, one of the reasons I chose kin is because I always liked sports. Growing up, I played cricket for Ontario. I even became a prospect for Canada. It was
I
big.
didn't know that. This athlete over here, I didn't know that.
I was an athlete, and I wanted to stay involved with sports in undergrad too, right? But obviously, like as you know, you just went through your whole 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. schedule. Can't really be a varsity athlete. Some people get it done because they really want to,
Yeah.
but it's hard to be a varsity athlete during school. So I still wanted to be involved with sports. So I went into kin because I wanted sports to be a part of my life. I knew that studying would take up a good portion of my day during my undergrad years. So I was like, why not do this? For some people really enjoy just learning about the human body and like the biochemical parts of the human body. So they go into biochemistry or they go into physiology or something like that. And there's no knock on any program at all. I think you should always go somewhere where you can get the good grades that you need. You'll enjoy studying whatever it is you're doing. And this last one is super important. People don't mention this because I just think people don't think um, that they think they'll get themselves in trouble if they say this, but
You have my curiosity.
yeah. So if you go into a program and let's say you really love it and you're able to get the grades that you need, but it's taking you 30 to 40 hours a week to study in that program, I think that's really difficult because what if you want to do research on the side? What if you want to see your family on the side? You want to do extracurriculars on the side? Is it worth it to go into a program like that just for the sake of studying all the time and getting the grades that you need, but not doing the experiences? What would you think about that? I mean, I don't know.
I think that's an interesting question, but I really think that you could make it work because I'm thinking of someone that I met during one of my CBL groups. They're in Ottawa Med with me, and they did their undergrad in biochemistry at U of T. I heard that, and the first thing that came to my mind is, "Wow, you've been through the ringer to get here."
Yeah.
But talking to him, he just loved what he did. He loved biochemistry and he put in the work, even if it was an absurd amount of work to get the marks that people got with less effort. I'm just assuming, like, there's no facts behind this,
Yeah.
but it's well known that U of T undergrads, especially in science, are not the easiest to get marks, but he made it work. And again, I think it's just the power of pursuing something you love. You can just study for so much. Like I can recite to you things from some of your kin lectures just because I studied them over and over because I enjoyed it and I was curious about. There's things from nutrition, from third year nutrition that I took that I still apply to my life because I love that. Like when I'm training on the bike or on the run, I use the calculations from that course to figure out how much fuel I should bring with me and how fast I should fuel. Whenever I get an injury or I feel an ache, I think back to sport injuries, what it could be, how to rehab and things like that.
Yeah.
So I really think I can see what you mean where say you're into biochemistry engineering and there's two programs, one's going to take like 30 hours per week for you to study and get the marks versus another one where you can do less.
Yeah.
I think at that point there is a benefit in going like, okay, I will still be studying the same things, but it will take less effort to get better marks.
Yeah.
I would make the decision to go after that one just because I believe in having multiple passions in your life and hobbies and stuff like that. So I'd pick that. But if the only option was every biochemistry program around the country was super hard and that's what you love, I'd say do it, make it work.
Yeah, definitely.
If no one's ever done it, be the first.
Yeah.
Or if other people have done it, why not you?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why even like when I say that, like you should always consider the amount of time you're going to have for experiences. Just consider the things you want to do. Like if you want to study 30 hours a week and you think that's important to you and because you really like it, go ahead and do it for sure. But just remember there's always going to be this sort of thing called, I like to call it opportunity cost.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, I like to call it opportunity cost, where if you really want to study that major and you think it's super important to you, go ahead and do it. But just remember that if you also want to have time for things like family, research, volunteering, you want to play sports on the side, you also want to work out, there's always going to be something you have to balance, something you have to take out. There's a great deal of choice.
Yeah, and that applies to everything in your life. Even as I think of residencies, people are like, Sherif, don't you like love doing all these different things on the side? Like, don't you love like physical activity? Don't you value family so much? Maybe like you are interested in surgery, but would you also be happy with, for example, sports medicine, doing a family residency +1 in sports medicine? You'll have so much more time available for all these other aspects. So it'd be like spreading myself a bit thinner versus like investing into my career. So it's like you said, it's just opportunity cost. You have to know that if I decide to pursue this thing, it will take away from resources that I can allocate to these specific things. And no one can make that decision. Like you said, it's your priorities and your values. If you value this one thing so much and you're willing to allocate most of your resources to it, power to you. No one can tell you that's right, that's wrong. It just, everything comes from self-reflection and realizing what your priorities are.
Sure.
But yeah, I use that exact same terminology for opportunity cost from micro econ in first year.
Yeah, that's the one.